Hello and thanks again for joining. Kirsten Kloss here with Netcast Event, and I have once again Chris Hamilton here in studio. Look at that, he's in front of Calgary all of a sudden.
Good morning,
We've
Kirsten.
Changed our set a little bit. So today we have two guests, and unfortunately we couldn't get them on video because one of them is in sunny San Diego on the phone, and he's causing us all kinds of trouble today.
He's not causing us trouble.
No, it's the fact that he's in San Diego is causing us trouble. But Bill Hawkins is here from San Diego, and we have Don Brown from
Ann Arbor.
Yep. Ann Arbor.
Just outside Ann Arbor on an acreage.
And so the four of us are going to be here in a Skype call, and we're going to be talking about their book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There in Sales. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass this on to Chris, who is going to, he's read almost all the book.
I have read all the book.
Pretty much. He has read all the book. And he's going to have a little bit of a conversation with these two fellows about all these great tactics that they have featured in their book. So, Chris, why don't you take it away?
Sounds great. Thank you, Kirsten. First off, I'd also like to thank Don and Bill for taking us up on our offer to have them on the show today. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And we're happy to have both of you here. I'm going to just give a quick overview of each of you. And so Don Brown has dedicated his career to influence effectiveness, working with the likes of Anheuser-Busch, I like that, Dell, Ford, U.S. Airways, and Harley-Davidson also like that. Don is experienced at improving results from C-level to line level. He lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which we've already gone over, you're just outside of that. And Don, welcome to the show. And just a little bit up front, before we get into Bill, we're going to allow you a couple seconds here to tell people how to get a hold of you if they want to reach you, email or any other way if you have a website. And that way, we'll also put that information up online so that people can access that as well. So
you got it. You got it. The contact, if anybody's interested, there's a website called multitouchperformance.com. And you can just, through contact there, it'll get to me. The other, if somebody wants to get me, is dbrown@situational.net.
Excellent.
And there's a question form on the broadcast of those of you who have registered to watch the recorded version even. You can ask questions. Those questions are going to go direct to these two fellows. So both Don and Bill will receive your questions, and they'll be sent private, so you can send it right to them directly. Take it away. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. And Bill, I'm going to get into yours. Bill is an expert leadership coach who designs and facilitates workshops for corporate clients on 5 continents. Holy smokes. You should all do all 7, actually. I'd like to see you do Antarctica. A founding member of the Marshall Goldsmith Group, he has worked with more than 20 Fortune 500 companies in 17 countries. And as we have said, he lives in San Diego. Lucky guy. Love that part of the neighborhood. And Bill, how would people be able to get a hold of you as well? Do you have a email address or a website that you can direct them to?
I've got a website, and it's Hawkins Consulting Group, and my email address is bill@Hawkins Consulting Group. So that's a great way to get
Excellent.
a hold
It's .com, is it on the end there? Okay,
and it's
sounds
.com,
good.
yeah.
So I'm going to hold the book up so that people can see it. And first of all, really, once again, appreciate the two of you taking time out to allow us to interview you today. First thing I'm going to start with, when I started reading the book, obviously I looked at, you go through 16 habits and then kind of how you break those habits. And that's, obviously marginalizing kind of the overall arching of the book. There's a lot more to it than that. But perhaps what I could do is ask you guys where you think the sales profession is at today, because there has been so much change in that profession. Can we get some input or thoughts on where you guys think the sales profession is today compared to even say 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
Sure. From does it matter who?
No, not at all. Either one of you.
Go ahead.
Take it away, Don.
Yeah. If we look at it's interesting too, because we're doing another book with McGraw-Hill on leadership, and we've done a lot of interviews for it. And if I look at where the sales profession's going, there's a couple of things going on. One, on one side, organizations are trying to cut people out. If you think about it, as a matter of fact, it's almost like we've got all this technology making us more effective and efficient, And yet organizations are trying to, what they're doing is they have us do their shadow work. They have us do all the input and the data entry. And if you want to change something on your account, you have to go yourself online to do it. So if I look at where the sales profession is going, it's being squeezed because companies want less people on their payroll. They're trying to solve things technologically rather than interpersonally. The other side, though, is the importance of the human interface is that much stronger, because once you finally do talk to somebody, once you finally do talk to somebody, it's that much more critical. The other side, the sales force, the sales profession is expanding because we mentioned in the book that idea of service to sales. And I'm going to do a session next week actually in Orlando, so I'll get out of the snow a bit. But with an organization where they've been told a number, you might have several hundred people that are told, all right, you used to be in medicine, now you're in sales. And it's the movement from taking a customer service workforce and saying, all right, these people are already in contact with the customer. We need them to help our sales efforts. So on the one side, they're getting squeezed. The other side, it's expanding because they're taking people that were traditionally just customer service personnel, and they're turning them into sales.
Interesting.
So to me, the importance of it keeps going up. The critical nature of the human interface is even that much stronger.
Interesting you should say that. We had a guy on a couple of weeks ago, and his name's escaping me right now, but he brought up a very good point about how people can very much, educate themselves prior to even getting into that sales process. So because of the internet, there is so much more. You really have to be on your toes, I would imagine, as opposed to you being the educational thought leader 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So I'd imagine that would probably have a great impact on the sales profession as well.
That's the whole title of the book is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." The game has changed. Absolutely. Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to cut you there.
Well, we probably did about 100 interviews of sales managers, salespeople, customers in preparing for the book, and you're spot on that the internet is probably one of the biggest game changers in that customers are better educated in terms of products, services, expectations than they've ever been in the past. So customer expectations are actually rising at the same time where perceived service is on the downside, that what Don was talking about. And what we're saying is salespeople, their job isn't just different, it's harder. It's probably more difficult than it's ever been before because they find themselves kind of at that balance point between rising customer expectations and perceived lower service levels by organizations. So the job is different.
I would imagine even the case now is that it's even more relevant to have that human interaction as opposed to the cold computer interaction, I would imagine, just because of the fact that people are so educated prior to. And now you really do a key differentiator. It's almost like old school. It's going back to the old times. But the key differentiator is that human element that plays into it now.
Yeah.
Don, you actually did the research on that. Why don't you tell them about it?
Well, the differentiator is that human factor. You have a certain I'll throw another dynamic into the mix, which is the changing demographics of customer bases. And so you have some people that, hey, I like the internet, fine, thank you very much. I don't need to talk to anybody. And you have other people that are crazy if they have to use the internet. So that's what I meant by the importance of that human interface is just magnified tenfold. And yet, like you say, the game isn't the same. It's not that I'm the font of information for those clients. They might even know just as much as I do about it. So the importance of that relationship and actually just the human interface, the interaction itself, what we find is it's come down to having to influence in the moment. It's all about to me, what I call the state of the moment. And it's not simply, you can't always look at, well, do I have this 20-year relationship with someone? It's what is the state of the moment right now that I'm dealing with.
So as a salesperson, it's got to be pretty scary out there.
I would think. I mean, and matter of fact, not only for the salesperson, but remember, too, with that whole service to sales movement, there's a lot of people that are being conscripted into sales that I've had people tell me, Don, I'm an engineer because I don't really like people. And now they've made me a customer service
You're a
engineer.
product specialist.
So now my job isn't simply to fix or design or what have you. It's to do all that and bring the human competencies that I didn't carry, that I didn't carry in my personal repertoire to begin with. So it's making it very tough on salespeople, and especially if you think about what happened with the not only the internet but voice recognition, with these kind of things, and then with the no call lists and such, it's too expensive to send direct mail. You can't call people outbound. And so what organizations started doing was saying, well, over here we've got people that are already in contact with our customers. We've got people that are customer service personnel that already have relationships and already. So we need to leverage them to sell. And some places do it admirably, other places do it horribly.
It's probably a law of numbers. If we ask enough people to get into sales, hopefully they got a nice enough network that we can leverage off of. So, the premise behind the book, and Bill, I'll kind of direct this question towards you, is there are you go over 16 habits that salespeople typically have that really are not, you have to change, and then obviously you go through how do you do a change process, and how do you keep going and moving in the right direction. So just a high level, how did you guys come up with the 16 habits? How come it wasn't potentially 24 or 5, or were these just the core ones that you found, or do you find more? Do you find, what's your take on that?
What we did in preparation for putting the book together was we interviewed primarily sales managers, national sales managers of everything from Nike to American Express to Boeing, right? And then we talked to regional managers and district managers, and basically talked to them about what's the difference between the most successful people on your team and the people who are not successful. What kind of things get them into trouble? And as we started talking to sales reps, sales managers, national sales managers, these 16 kind of emerged. These are the buckets that we ended up putting the feedback that we got from them into. Then after we got those buckets, what we found out was that there's about 5 or 6 of these that are much more likely to be habits for your seasoned veteran, right? This is somebody with 3, 6, 10 years of experience, traps that they can fall into. Some of the other habits are more what we call rookie mistakes. And in total, we came up with 16. But it was a result of all of the information that we gleaned from basically.
It was funny when I was going through and reading them. I chuckle because I've spent 25 years in sales and marketing. I'm more on the marketing side now than I am on the sales side. But I laugh because obviously. You kind of wrote this book about me as I was going through my sales career, I think is what it comes down to. I'm looking at one right now, habit number 5, contact without a purpose. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves, I guess, when people contact you and it's just, hey, how you doing? What's going on?
Small talk.
And it's has zero purpose whatsoever. Yeah. But the concept here is maybe I might get you to rattle off, what do you think are kind of the top 3? And I don't want to give away all 16, obviously, because I want people to buy your book, and I'm going to hold it up here again. But what do you think are maybe the top 2 or 3 that salespeople could really could benefit from changing? Which ones do you guys think it might be? And then again, it's that rookie and also the seasoned veteran. Potentially. Maybe Don or Bill. Sorry.
Oh yeah, just wasn't sure.
Maybe let me take the seasoned veteran, since I kind of brought that up. And we basically it'd be habit number 1, failure to be present. Right? It's that when you've been doing this for years and years, and you know the customers and you know the products, and it can be that kind of. It looks like you'd rather be somewhere else with someone else. You're just not fully present and in the moment. And what some seasoned veterans think is that, well, that will never show to the customer, but it does. And a second would be selective hearing. It's thinking, it's overcoming objections in your mind, rather than just listening to what the customer is saying. And if I had to pick the third of the big three for the seasoned veteran, it'd be curb qualifying. And here I am, I wrote the book, and the story I tell about myself is I did that as recently myself as a couple of months ago, where I get a call from a potential client. They're 3 time zones away from me. I've never heard of them before, and my first reaction is I'm not too excited about it. And I find out later on that it's a major, I could have blown this. It actually was a major source of great consulting work. So it's really easy when you've been in the business for a while to make those judgments about the potential of a client before you actually listen to what they have to say. So if I had to pick 3 for the seasoned veteran, it would be 1, failure to be present, 2, habit 4, selective hearing, and habit 6, curb qualifying.
Interesting. I really, so first off, the failure to be present, even just not showing up in the devoid. I've been in meetings before where I've been guilty of that, but definitely very, very valid point. And the curb, what was it again? Curb, I'm trying to look at your point here. Curb qualifying. There we are. Yeah.
Right? We hear about this most frequently in auto sales and in real estate, right? Where there's a tendency to judge a prospect's kind of means and motives superficially at a distance, right? If they drive up in one kind of a car, you kind of assume that they've got these kind of means and might be interested in whatever. And of course, sometimes we're so wrong on this.
So
that the professional salesperson needs to do the homework. Needs to do the
interesting story behind that one. Hold on for a second.
You go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, whether this is true or not, I heard this story several years ago. And so when Wayne Gretzky played for, and I have to bring hockey up because we're Canadian. When Wayne Gretzky played for the Edmonton Oilers,
go Wings.
Yeah, go Flames, go Detroit. He went into, they had a car dealership in the West Edmonton Mall, and they sold Jaguars. And he went in, and he looked so young. I remember back in when he was first started out, he looked like he was about 14 years old. And he went to go buy a car, and the salesman didn't know who he was, and just basically blew him off. He came down to Calgary, literally bought a car that day, and then got back up to Edmonton, went and told the guy, hey, bought the car that you were trying to actually sell. And, you lost out on it. So, I heard the story. Don't know whether it's true or not, but...
Well, and I'm curious now, is that typically an affliction that occurs when one has seen success and is overwhelmed with opportunity, where they filter out who they think might not be a good opportunity immediately, or is it more just apathy that causes that?
My book would be apathy. You've seen so many customers and so many for that veteran. You've seen so many deals that it's close. A lot of these habits are related, where you hold the one of withholding passion, and it's not because you intend to withhold passion. There's a certain amount of apathy that creeps in, and a certain amount of boredom that creeps in for people that have been in sales for a long time. That's why you see certain veteran slumps as well. Absolutely.
That's an interesting approach. So, Don, Bill gave us 3. I'm not going to peg you for 3, but is there 1 or 2 that that you think are relevant as well?
I'll take the other side of it, and then I'll save one that I think is the one that everybody's most guilty of. But Bill, looking at some of the vets, I'll look at some of the new people, both people that are newbies to sales and ones that are conscripts or draftees. I would probably say that the vocal filler and selling past the close are probably 2 of the ones that people that are new to sales, and the fact that people feel they have to be talking, that they feel that when they're newer to sales. And that's where the vocal filler comes in. That's where the ums and the ahs and the selling past the close of not just knowing to, hey, set up and write the order. That happens a lot in the beginning, and you had mentioned the idea of contact without purpose. I've had groups where I had somebody say, Don, these habits that you're talking about, and you're right on, this is what we teach our salespeople to do. That's, like you say about the idea of I want you calling them once a week. Yeah, but boss, they've got me on a no-call list. They don't want me calling. Well, I don't care. They're too big of an opportunity. I want you calling them every. So the newer people to sales, they kind of translate that organizational pressure into things like vocal filler and selling past the close and being too often. The last one for me of overriding any of them in any influence context, not just sales, is the failure to be present. I think more than anything else, what we suffer from, any of us, whether you're talking about parents of 3 children or a life partner to someone or trying to sell something, is we can't. We do exercises in our workshops where if you and I are talking, we each have a little card that you can hold up that says out. So when you mentally check out, you hold it up. And you can put 2 together and say, tell each other about your first sale. Most dyads can't make it past 30 to 60 seconds before your mind. I mean, before your mind starts wandering on your narrative.
That's interesting.
So that if people ask me, they say, "What's the one thing I can do?" It to me is to learn to be present, because everything happens. You don't have the long opportunities to let's go do a round of golf and get to know each other, and let's spend several dinners together. You don't have that opportunity in a lot of cases. You've got moments in which to respond and adapt, and I think that failure to be present is probably what we're almost. Well,
don't you almost have to take a learning approach where you're drawing out? That's where they always. I mean, the classic term is draw out the questions, right? But that changes that whole psychology of the conversation. But obviously, if you're dealing with somebody that's sitting there thinking, "Why should I be telling you all this information already?" It's a tough. You're kind of in a bit of a dichotomy there. What do I do, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to, what do I do? But half of it is what we find people today is they can't even sit and listen in a direct fashion. The brain research shows we got a couple of circuits. One is the direct circuit where I'm talking to you or listening to you and engaged with you. The other circuit is narrative, where I'm thinking about what I got to do when I get home, or I'm thinking about what the pressure the boss put on this morning. And most of us can't manage more than about 30 seconds on a direct circuit with somebody.
What about the I'm thinking, what do I say next to this guy, or how do I craft this? How does that fit in?
Yeah, that fits in that instead of listening to you, I'm, like you say, it's kind of a second level of listening. Third, the worst listening is where I'm ignoring you, and we do that at home when we have the remote in our hand, watching the Wings and Edmonton And the second level is where we are. It's kind of a filtered listening, where we're simply we're recording what they say, and we're thinking of our response. How many times have you had your girlfriend, wife, what have you, say, "Well, wait a minute, did you hear me?" And you can replay everything they said. You can say, "Yeah, sure I did." And you can repeat every word back to them, but you weren't paying attention to it. You were simply recording and thinking of your next response, as opposed to the best level of listening is where I am taking in and considering what you're saying without thought of response, without thought of some other activity, simply actively listening. You bet.
So the concept is then you've got these 16 habits that seasoned veterans and also newbies do. How do you walk someone through a process of being able to change or break those habits? I mean, that's extremely tough. I mean, I would imagine with a newbie, it's a little bit different than a seasoned veteran, because that's probably years and years of them doing this. Whereas a newbie, at least you can correct that earlier in their career. Would that be a fair assessment on that side? And how would you actually go about doing that potentially?
Well, I mean, for my thinking, if I've got someone that wants to improve, that wants to do better. We have a saying that says, "Don't try coaching the unwilling." But if you've got somebody that wants to get better, it's a matter of saying, all right, first of all, pick one thing. Don't try to quit smoking, lose weight, get fit, and get a new job and don't do it all together. Pick one thing. And usually it's a matter of if you can measure it, you can change it.
It's funny you say that, because that was one of the quotes I actually specifically I was reading again this morning, and that one came right up, and I remember that one.
And matter of fact, some of the work that Marshall's doing right now deals with his daughter Kelly. It deals with the idea of inertia. If you're someone that if whatever you're doing now, you're going to tend to continue to do. And key to overcoming inertia is measurement. That's what they're finding right now. And the same for us. Of the process is pick that one thing, and then we have certain, you use a mechanism to measure it on a regular basis and see what you're doing with it. Because if it's something that you write down at the beginning of the year and see what happens at the end, not likely to come about. Not likely to come about.
How would you? Maybe Bill, you might be able to answer this one because we've dominated the conversation with Don, and I don't want you to get upset. But the failure to be present. How would you potentially coach someone through that, or get them to obviously be present in the conversation?
Absolutely. And if that is that's probably one of the most common habits that people pick that they'd like to improve. And the first thing that we talk to them about is all of these tools that you now have, the BlackBerry, i.e. the Crackberry, and the instant communications, the telephone, is to shut it off before you go in, for your meetings with customers. And too many times what we do is we catch ourselves quickly looking at the phone, even if it's on mute. If it's on vibrate, you're looking down, you've lost your train of thought, you're not present. So one of the things that we teach people to do is to mentally prepare themselves before you go into the sales call. Turn off your telephone, mentally get set, and then practice. Truly, Don was talking about the difference between listening to understand and listening to respond. Is what we'll have people do is practice listening to understand. Don't judge it, don't defend it, don't explain it. Just listen to what your customer is saying and practice doing that for 60 to 120 seconds at a time. And it doesn't sound like long, but most of us can't do that. So we take it in bite-sized chunks.
Has it always been that way, or is it more that technology has really interfered with that process? Because I know you just brought up the BlackBerry. It's funny when you were mentioning it because Kirsten's looking at his iPhone. So, but he was actually looking for questions. Actually,
there's a temptation to just sneak a
he was actually,
even if you have it on
Billy,
vibrate, it is so easy to get distracted, and you're not present.
Yeah.
So, actually what we'll say is a tool that is meant to make you more effective can actually get in the way of being effective in front of the customer. Yeah.
That's it's interesting. Actually, just one thing. Just turn off your cell phone, right, when you go in.
One thing. In fact, what we typically tell people we're working with is almost every suggestion that we offer you, either in person or in the book, is going to be kind of straightforward and simple. But simple does not mean easy. If it was easy, you'd have done it already.
Yeah.
Right? You want to lose weight. Yeah, eat less food and exercise. You'll lose some weight. It's easy to understand, not necessarily always easy to implement. So that's why the suggestion was take it in bite-sized chunks, don't overcommit, and keep.
Is it a learned habit, or is it just instinctive that we tend to do this though?
That's a great question. What do you think? I think in some of these cases they're actually learned, and I think in other cases, as we talked about earlier, we kind of fall into them over time. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I just kind of start developing some bad habits now that I didn't have in the past. So in some cases we fall into them, in other cases I think it's actually a learned habit.
Yeah. Matter of fact, you get for some of the habits, like you say, if I'm getting a lot of pressure from my boss, then he or she is creating a lot of tension with me. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to transfer some of that tension to the customer. I'm going to use ineffective habits as a way of creating urgency on my customer's part. So they do get ingrained. The idea of simply failing to be present is, if you take the fact that there's a great study that says on any given conversation, I don't care who you're talking to, for what purpose, professional or personal, you've got a 47% chance of them actually being listening at that point.
Wow.
So it's a coin toss as to whether someone's actively listening. So we have that tendency, and then you throw in the technology of this little efficiency tool called an iPhone or a BlackBerry. You throw that in, our minds go, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love being distracted. So, I mean, that to me is innate. That thing is that's not something that That's innate in us. And then you throw in the technology, it hurts. And the rest of them are simply because it's a product of the job. And in many cases, I'll say it, in many cases, companies have taught people to do this.
Yeah.
You know, the whole, when you see, hey, sale ends Saturday, well, I might be able to get that to you by Tuesday, but I'm not sure. And you know, if you want it, I've got 2 of them left. I don't know what I'll have next week. Well, you know, I'm using that as a way to create urgency in the customer's mind.
And you brought it up earlier. I think one of the things that I caught from you, and we are listening, obviously, because you're
yeah,
to what you're
but
saying.
Chris is holding up your book, so he wasn't paying attention again.
Yes, but the when you were talking about the sales manager, this is you know, you need to make that call. You get to call that guy, right? And that's and you bring up a very good point that corporations have built processes out, and it's like, this is what's worked. It's always worked. We're going to keep doing this. But now it's almost like you have to go in and just literally break these guys of their bad habits. How do you guys get into companies and then start talking to them? Is it usually top down? Do you have to work with management to take an overarching approach to this, or can you start bottom up and start maneuvering? What's the best approach for a company to potentially look at?
Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. Doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Kirsten,
we got a
you answer
sensitive
now.
topic now. This is good. We're getting to the real core of it.
I can give you my experience has been it's far better to do it where you have top down, where you have that kind of emphasis, where they're saying we want to improve effectiveness. Because we do know that the fun stuff is we do have data, statistically reliable and valid data of our own studies that show that companies where an individual not only goes through a workshop or what have you, but then continues with the follow-on activities, their sales will jump anywhere from 4% if they just simply go through a day's training. And we've got the data that says these salespeople that did nothing, heck, they went down or stayed the same. The people that went through the session went up 4 or 5%, but the ones that continued with the follow-on had 19 and 20% increases in revenue with even better gross profit and line counts and such.
Wow.
So, I mean, to start at the top, it's easy to get that ear. What it comes down to to be successful, though, is those people, the salespeople that are going through it, they have to want it for themselves, because you can have an organization that says, well, here's our new strategy and our new product and our new pricing and our new competitive and such. But the only thing the interesting thing is the only thing that the salespeople can actually control is their own behavior. And it's also probably the key differentiator. So once you get somebody that does want to do it, that's what it hinges on. Is them.
So what you just said was basically, if people walk through your process, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you're talking like 4 to almost 20% potential upside in revenue just by breaking some of these habits that these guys have.
Absolutely. Wow. By focusing on the behavioral interface. You can get anywhere from a 4 to 20% bump in revenue by attacking it, and the difference between 4 and 20 depends on how much you put into it. You, the salesperson.
So, is this which? I'm putting a plug in for your company. Obviously, is this your company, Don or Bill? Is it both of you guys, or what's? How's that? Where do people call to find out about how they can increase the revenues up to 20%?
Yeah, that's a pretty staggering number.
The multitouchperformance.com.
Okay.
Or called, because we've got we did the study we did I guess the foundational study was with a company that had 3,500 sales and service reps, and so we had enough people there that we had a control group that did nothing. We had plenty of people in the same. We were comparing apples to apples in terms of markets, and what we saw was the people that simply went through the training for a day. They watched their sales bump up 4 to 5%, 4 to 5 percentage points, I should say.
That is incredible.
And just by doing that. And the ones that volunteered and did the follow-up, if you noticed in the book, things like grabbing stakeholders and practicing feed forward and coaching, the ones that engaged in those, they're the ones who saw their sales go up 19 and 20%.
Wow. Sorry, just to let you know, I love stats. That's why I honed in on that one. I'm stats man.
Him Rain Man.
But
I do have a question. Just what's the demographics of the people that are showing up for your conferences typically? Like what's the age range, and who are you finding are showing up?
Mr. Hawkins?
I'm sitting here thinking about that. I just did a sales for a national sales meeting for Nike a few months ago, and basically we had salespeople there with everything from 6 months of experience to 20 and 30 years of experience. Right? So basically, it runs the gamut. And to build on what Don said, what we're finding is just being exposed to this, reading the darn book, picking a habit, recognizing there's something you can do better, that gets you the 4, 5, 10% improvement. What we're really trying to convince companies to do, and it doesn't cost them a thing, right? This isn't us, it's them putting in place follow-up processes, like the daily question. Is one of them that we talk about, that sales can be a kind of lonely job out there. So what we do is we recommend that salespeople pick a partner and then call each other daily. And with specific questions that they've zeroed in on, they're going to help them both in their personal and their professional life. And that simple things like that cost nothing, actually have a tremendous impact on personal performance and in terms of productivity.
Well, and the reason I asked that question was I was curious. Again, it's about the learned versus instinctive. We've had other guests here on the show that have talked about the crocodile brain, and this is Oren Klaff. But there's the whole idea of that book, The Game. And the younger crowd coming in and completely changing the way the sales process goes, just from the fact that they have a completely fresh start. So how are you noticing this, and how does this mean that there's an urgent need for senior sales representatives and companies that are kind of the old style to update it, or is this just a myth?
I'll take an observation on that. It's almost where. We mentioned in the book, but I've been doing further work with a woman. She's at the Institute for Social Research at University of Michigan here, and just a brilliant researcher. And what they've seen is that since the year 2000, that there's been an empathy crash. Mm-hmm. And that means that, and they did it through 30 to 40 years of doing assessments with college students on how much empathy is about, do you understand someone else and do you care? And what we're finding is that the number of people who would identify themselves as caring about others and feeling badly when someone experiences misfortune in that it's dropped. It dropped like 40% over the last 10 or 12 years. And it's that. And so if I look at that and I translate that into what does it mean in the sales world, I think what you have is people that don't. We're losing the capacity to connect with others. I think you get a lot of people that don't have the human skills. My youngest daughter, I mentioned, is 19, but when she was about 15, 16, it was at a meeting that there was a bunch of adults and a whole bunch of athletes. She's a soccer player, and I would tell you that in that room with friends in that those 16 or 15-year-olds would rather text each other than talk to each other.
Well, that's kind of why I was asking about the technology piece. I really think a lot of that has based around the technology and the facelessness of technology nowadays, right?
We know we're losing the ability to read nonverbal.
But I think the nice thing about that is I always look at there's always an opportunity wrapped around that. And, to use a text and be faceless, that's easy. Anyone can do that. But, if you can do that, but also put that human element in and start doing the empathy, get the empathy chip, I guess. I'll steal that from Jennifer Aniston when she was talking about Brad Pitt when they broke up. But you get that empathy chip, and you play that. I mean, you could be gangbuster probably in sales if I would imagine, because you really differentiate yourself. Would that be a fair assessment?
It'd be spot on.
That could be a very fair assessment, because as we're seeing scores in empathy go down, the scores in customer satisfaction have remained the same, meaning that when you do customer satisfaction surveys, what is the difference between a customer being satisfied and highly satisfied? It invariably comes down to the human contact. It's not the product performance. It's not the company. It's almost invariably what made you highly satisfied. It was something to do with the human contact in the organization. So that has remained constant. As this empathy thing has gone down, it's an easy way for salespeople to distinguish themselves in the new world.
It's yeah. I mean, it's funny. It really, a lot of the guests that we have on take a lot of the approach from the psychology side of things. And you know, maybe I was just naive before I started interviewing a lot of authors here over the last 4 or 5 months. But it really comes down to a lot of the human psychology and the psyche of people that is what really can help differentiate yourself, not only in sales but also in marketing and in basic life as well, I think.
It sure does.
Kirsten,
we
got
great questions. Well, these questions were coming in from the chat room, so I really appreciate the chance. If anybody has any last questions, please post them now, and we'll set them on our two fellows here and see if they can answer them for you.
You bet. So while we're waiting for that, once again, guys, I'd like you to have the opportunity to plug your respective websites and how people can contact you. Bill, we'll start with you because I'd started with Don originally out of the show, so I'm going to give you the opportunity on the closing here to promote yourself as well. So how do people get a hold of you, and what's your website?
My website is www.hawkinsconsultinggroup.com, and of course my email address is bill@hawkinsconsultinggroup.com. And on there, if you go to the website, what we've got is the 16 habits and some suggestions around them. I know Don has the same thing on his website. And I guess what we stand ready to do is to help people understand how they can become more effective and then what kind of tools are available to make that happen for you.
Okay, that's good. And Don, what about you? How do people get a hold of you, and any other relevant information too?
You bet. It's Don Brown, multitouchperformance.com, and the email is dbrown@situational.net. And matter of fact, if you want, it's 734-669-4363.
Excellent.
Great. And for any.
There's no problem picking up a phone.
And for anybody that's watching, again, you can always ask the question in the question form, and that will go directly to the authors, so you can get direct contact. That's
excellent.
Wonderful.
So, gentlemen, that was excellent, very great insight, and love the book. I say that about every book I read, though, but I do. I love learning stuff and getting information. And it sounds like you said you were writing another book here, and we would love to have you back on when you get that book going. And
it'll be this
excellent.
fall.
So we will. We'd love to have you back on and learn more about that.
Gentlemen, is there an audiobook out at all, and anything on the Kindle?
Well, I know they've got, for What Got You Here in Sales, there's an ebook, and there's an enhanced ebook that has videos of Marshall and Bill and myself, and some vignettes and things that they add into the enhanced ebook. So both of those are already in play. I don't know if they've got an audio version. Is
there?
I don't believe the audio version is out.
Is there a preface in there that says "Do not read this while in a meeting"?
No, but there should be, right?
And now I feel burned because I just have the old school paper or the hardcover where I can't see the videos. I'm upset now. But gentlemen, it was an honor interviewing you. A pleasure on our side, and
absolutely.
Thank you ever so much for your time, and we look forward to future conversations with you too.
Likewise.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Happy sales.
We'll just let this run a little bit here so that we don't cut off the end of the video.
Perfect.
Great. Fantastic.
That was awesome.
Good job.
As I say, I'm killer for stats. I love stats, and when someone says I can do up to 20% greater in